may have heard of Lezginka, as it is a dance quite well known in the world. There are at least 100 variations of this dance among the people in the Caucasus. But this is the original way Lezgins perform their ancient dance. This is a ritual dance imitating a hunt. The man represents an eagle and the woman represents a wildfowl. Initially, the eagle stalks his prey, then he chases her, and finally, the dance imitates a struggle. Until recently, there were still some very old people in the villages who could dance the original Lezgikul or Lezgin dance. They say that Dagestan is a country of mountains, and at the same time, it's a mountain of languages. The people who live here speak more than 40 different languages. For example, an Avar language group consists of 14 languages, and the Lezgin group consists of 12. There are places where people living in two neighboring villages cannot understand each other. Our Lezgin language isn't homogeneous either. There are three main dialects: Akhti, Kuri, and Kuba. Akhti dialect is spoken by the smallest number of people, as it is spread only in the Akhti region. Lezgins descend from the indigenous peoples of the Caucasus who historically lived in the adjacent areas of modern Dagestan and Azerbaijan. Currently, Lezgins live in 7 compact administrative regions of Dagestan. In accordance with the 2002 census conducted in the Russian Federation, the number of Lezgins in Russia amounts to 412,000 people. Lezgin language belongs to the Lezgin group of Dagestani languages. Their religion is Sunni Muslims. This is a stand for big flower pots, and this one a ring for small flower pots. This is a pattern that is usually used for metal railings and fences. Since the ancient times, Lezgins have been famous for making rugs, cloth, ceramics, tanning, blacksmithing, armories, and jewelry. Unique pieces of the art and handicrafts can be found in the Museum of Village Akhti, which had once been the best historical museum in the Soviet Caucasus. The village of Ispik has been famous for its ceramics for centuries. The items they produced were of a very high artistic value. To make the pottery, they used lead glaze, adding copper, manganese, iron, and chrome oxides. The pottery underwent a special firing in a special clay oven. Nowadays, pieces of Ispik ceramics can only be seen in the museums of Makhachkala, St. Petersburg, the Hermitage, Moscow, the Museum of Oriental Arts, and in several museums abroad. What we see here on the table are pieces of ceramics made in the village of Ispik. They're about 400 to 500 years old. The patterns are very interesting, and you can see the drawing made by the steady hand of an ancient artist. My most precious finding is this tripod stand, which was placed under a freshly glazed ceramic bowl. Before it was to be put inside the oven for firing. During the firing process, the glaze drained from the edges of the bowl without making it stick to the oven shelf, thus leaving the piece undamaged. Now, we're going to bake bread using the traditional way of cooking. We call it sage. I have kneaded the fresh dough, and now I will spread it very thinly. This bread is tastier than the one we usually bake in an oven. Of course, it's different from the one made of yeast dough.
И отличается, конечно, от этого дрожжевого теста.
Perhaps this was the exact method of making bread used by the warriors of Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, because all they needed for it was a small sack of wheat flour, some water, and a battle sheet. Is it tasty? Yes, it is. The famous epic Charveli came from the Lezghin land. It tells a story of a very strong giant named Charveli. The son of a peasant, he was gifted with enormous strength, loved his people, protected the poor and the deprived, and what is more important, he defended his native land from its enemies.
Сейчас мы будем вскрывать первую печку, где мы произвели экспериментальный.
Now we're going to open the oven where we made our first experimental firing of Ispik ceramics. We aim at the revival of an old method used for making Ispik pottery. This is a wood-burning oven made out of bricks and clay in accordance with the remnants of the traditional Ispik ovens. We'll see the result, and then we'll think of possible changes to the construction. For centuries, the majority of Lezgins had been living in villages high in the mountains. But over time, for several reasons, including the destructive earthquakes of the 60s and 70s, the people were forced to abandon the mountains where their ancestors lived and resettle to the plains.
Ну вот мы и пришли, да?
Да.
Пришли домой. Это ваш дом, да?
Это где дом, Авча? Сохнет, сочет.
The main reason why the people left this place was the earthquake of 1969. After the earthquake, a state program of resettlement from the mountainous regions was launched in Dagestan. Now, the only one left here is this elderly woman. She lives here and doesn't want to leave the place. She's kind of a recluse. 40 times we've pleaded her to come down to the plains, to civilization. But she refuses, and she lives here all year long. Her parents, relatives, and all her ancestors are buried here, and she's a sort of guardian of their souls. I cannot leave the ancient graves, where the spirit of my ancestors hovers. My heart is bleeding when I see all these, she says. She has a daughter, a family. They invite her to come and stay with them. She's in contact with them and on friendly terms. But still, she cannot leave the mountains and the ancient graveyard.
Моих предков. Вот мне говорит, сердце плачет, видя все это. Я буду хранить. Она как бы является хранительницей очага.
She's a keeper of the
Вы
hearth.
посмотрели, везде руины, да?
You see the ruins? The entire village is in ruins, and only her roof remains here. Look, there's smoke coming out of her chimney. This is a signal watchtower. Such watchtowers were erected near all relatively large settlements. They were all interconnected. It was a kind of defense chain. It started at the Derbent fortress, and when an enemy attacked, fires were put on tops of the watchtowers, warning of approaching enemies. The settlements located near the towers were considered defensive settlements. There were many watchtowers in the region, but not many of them have been preserved. They remind us of our great history and that we should always remember it and tell our grandchildren and great-grandchildren about it. Sharvali will never die. He will always stay alive. Be united, live in peace, and he'll join you if he sees all the righteous deeds you do. He'll come back to be with you. That is what the ancient Lezghin epic says.